Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the solo podcast by the mayor of Chen City, aka CL Chen. So today we're going to talk about Asian guys that can bag hot white girls. What are some common traits? I wrote down 5 traits that are common in Asian guys that are attractive to hot white girls. So if you're an Asian guy, chances are you've heard from TikTok, from YouTube, or just from having lived your life, you've observed that Asian guys, they're not seen as attractive internationally on the world stage to foreigner girls. I would say there's some truth in that. Certainly, there's some truth in that. The statistics back it up. The statistics of online dating definitely back it up. But there's also a type of Asian guys that are attractive to all races of girls, no matter if they're white, Latina, black. They are just attractive because they are undeniably attractive on the inside and out. So today, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So for those of you who didn't know, I myself went on a little phase of kind of being obsessed with white girls. Like I now am a little bit different. I prefer Asian girls genuinely, wholeheartedly. But for from when I was about like 19 years old to like 25 maybe, I was dating mostly white girls. Honestly, I think there was a part of it that I just wanted to prove myself. Like as terrible as it is, I know that is unhealthy. Well, obviously I didn't at the time. I know now, and I think I've grown out of it. But for a while, I was really just trying to prove myself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like white girls aren't good, but I'm just saying the reason I dated white girls mainly was probably not healthy. Because I went on that phase, I think I have a better understanding of what makes an Asian guy attractive even in the Western world. Because I came from a very Eastern background where growing up until I was 13 years old, I went to an all Chinese, mostly Asian environment. And then all of a sudden, I switched school to an international school that had a lot of white people, where I kind of became the only Asian kid in my friend group full of white kids. And then later on, I lived overseas for many years, studied university in Sydney as well, Australia. So I have a thing or two to say about that shift to go from Eastern culture and then Western culture. So first things first, you got to understand that the idea of cool or what is seen as attractive is kind of different across cultures. And it takes a little bit of time for you to understand it. There's a lot of things that you say or do in the Western culture that might be considered cringe in Eastern culture, and vice versa, right? If you're too timid in Eastern culture, that might be normal. But then in Western culture, being timid or being overly respectful to the point where you're almost passive, that might be seen as not confident, not attractive. So, kind of understanding these cultural differences is the first step to everything. Okay, point number one, you should know how to vibe. So, if you're an Asian guy who grew up in the States or you grew up in a Western culture, then this probably applies to you less. But I'm thinking more the East Asians that grew up in Asia. You know, if you grew up in an Asian society, then vibing, joking around, having a conversation, just talking about bullshit, bantering is gonna seem foreign to you. Yeah, it's gonna be a muscle that you have to train, but you need to train it because that's essentially how you have fun. So, one tip with this would be to hang out more with Western people. Like, if your goal right now is to try to understand the social codes, how things work in a Western society, whether you're in LA or Sydney or New Zealand, whatever the place is, you should hang out with more of the locals. So don't be that Asian guy who only hangs out with Asians, because then you're not going to develop Western social skills so that you can bag hot white girls. So learn how to vibe, learn how to have fun, learn how to banter. And point number two is take care of your looks and physicality. So I think things are getting better and better now in terms of how the average guy looks. With the rise of TikTok and social media, There's so much content that teaches you how to glow up. By the way, if you haven't seen my latest video on how to glow up, should definitely check that out. So yeah, there's really no excuse when it comes to why you would still look like a nerd. But for Asian guys specifically, because genetically, naturally, we have a slimmer frame. Our facial features are, traditionally speaking, compared to foreigners, more on the feminine side. So you could say that in an international dating market, these things are a bit of a disadvantage. But don't go victimizing yourself now, because this is such a small disadvantage if you improve on all the other areas of your life. If you actually develop an interesting personality, if you actually have riz, if you develop a style, you actually improve your frame, you get some muscle. There is so many things that you can do to improve yourself that I refuse to accept any victim mentality. But yes, improve your looks, go to the gym, build some muscle. I think every guy can get to like an objective 7 or 8 out of 10 if you just put in the work. And point number 3 is that you should learn how to connect with a girl. So this is something that I noticed more since moving back to Asia. I feel like the way people date, the topics that they talk about is quite different in Asia versus in the Western world. Actually, I feel like a lot of my game is quite Western. So I actually think that a Western style of game would translate better in Eastern cultures than Eastern culture game translating to the West. The reason for that is, quite frankly put, I feel like Eastern culture, specifically like Chinese culture, Japanese, Korean, they're not as good at socializing. They're not as good at like being authentic or just saying what's on your mind, because the cultures are more like suffocating cultures. There's a lot of societal expectations. You know, if you look at Japanese people, a lot of them talk with such an act that you almost can't feel their real self, their authentic self underneath this polite facade that they show to the world. And even in Chinese culture, there's just so much social norms that people have to adhere to that when they're out on a date, you know, trying to build a connection, sometimes it takes people a long time to build anything that even means something to them emotionally. But if you're a guy who actually knows how to connect with another human being, another girl, then you're gonna really stand out. We're not gonna go too deep into exactly how to connect with a girl in this video, but TLDR, you just want to be authentic. I know that's a very hard, actionable advice, but it essentially comes down to that. Not letting any of your fears or your programming hold you back from doing what your instincts guide you to do. If you want to say that joke, say it. If you want to hold her hand, you can initiate an invitation to do that. If you want to take her out on a date, you just say it. Being direct, being bold, confident, being expressive, and just letting your intuition guide you. Okay, the fourth point is that you want to be a leader and you want to be proactive. I'd say if you're an Asian guy and you're currently not getting white girls, this is most likely a problem that you face. Because in the Asian cultures, we're really taught to not stand out, respect the authority, and just try really hard to be respectful to the point that you're almost walking on eggshells. Like you don't express what you think, you don't go for what you want, because what if that person gets offended? If I talk to this girl at the bar, what if other people see me? I think Asian culture is this type of thoughts on steroids. That's why most Asians are a bit more timid. That's why most Asians overthink. They have more anxiety. They're less confident socially because, like I said before, it's kind of a suffocating culture. So when you transition to a Western culture, you want to learn to become a leader. You know, not to be a leader just for the sake of, oh, I want to be in charge and I need the girl to listen to me. Otherwise, I'm not attractive. But also just for your own happiness and psychology. You want to be a person, a man who does what he wants, says what he wants. So invite her out on a date. Be direct. Show her your intentions. Don't be like that friend zone type of guy. Actually be bold, be proactive, and be a leader. And how you should lead, a lot of times, honestly, your intuition already knows. You know, you feel in that moment, oh, I should probably kiss her now, or I should probably grab her hand, or I can give her a compliment here, or I want to tease her here. But what we learn as we grow up is that we should filter these thoughts because it's risky. What if you get rejected socially? What if she rejects you? So a big part of becoming attractive again is actually unlearning these things that you learned, unsuppressing these things that you've learned to suppress. Yeah, and just keep yourself accountable with that because I feel like life is really a perpetual journey of learning how to be more yourself. But in order to be yourself, you need to know what you're feeling first. And the more you recognize what you're feeling, what your desires are, what you want to say, the more obvious those voices will become to you. So, my friends, that is how you bag whole white girls as an Asian guy. My delivery food just arrived, so I'm gonna cut this video short and just leave you with these 4 points. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.